Paul, how you doing?
Good, man. Top of the world.
Dude, did you see Senator Mark Kelly out there saying that these astronauts were never stranded because there was already a spaceship up there. There was already one of Elon Musk's up there attached. If they would have left in that, then they would have had no emergency vehicle.
It was an emergency vehicle. It wasn't for them to get back home on.
Right. So
I'm so disappointed in him because he is an astronaut and he knows what the truth is. It's just disappointing.
And he holds a record, right, for how many days in space on that space station. He knows exactly how it works. He should have just been truthful and go, of course they couldn't come home in that. Then there would have been no emergency escape vehicle for anybody if something, because there wasn't currently a Soyuz connected. The only thing that was connected currently was a Dragon capsule before the second Dragon capsule went up. And yeah, sure, Biden could have coordinated this with Russia and had a Soyuz launch up there and left that as a lifeboat. Didn't want to do that because Russia bad, Ukraine war, right?
Right.
So
and he turned down Musk, who said it wouldn't have been in 8 days, but I would have been there in 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, he said, I saw a good clip from him. He said they have about a 65-day turnaround on a Dragon passenger vehicle, not so much on the cargo, because there's just stuff that they don't want to reuse. Nozzle jets, the primary door seal, that gets swapped out. Well, it doesn't make any sense to try to use it a second time, right? You just need it to hold that one time really good and then take it and replace it. But stuff like that. So it's about a 65-day turnaround. He said they could have improved that if necessary. But there's also launch windows too. I mean, because that thing's circling the globe 90 times a day, I believe. It's something ridiculous.
17,000 miles an hour.
Right. So you gotta let the computer do the math to figure out when the launch window is. Actually, so you're not up there just hanging out going, I wonder when it's going to come by.
Dude, one of my all-time favorite movie scenes is in Red Planet, where this module with 3 or 4 astronauts on it, something goes wrong and they crash land on Mars, and the station on ground is just over the horizon. He's got a crack in his oxygen. He goes, I got to thank my algebra teacher because I thought I would never use algebra, but I'm algebraing the hell out of this to see if I got enough air to get to the station.
I like what I did with that. There was a TV show called The Expanse that used legitimate math, right?
Yeah.
And the difference that like the Kepler belt would have slight gravity, whereas Mars would have no gravity. Right. The way they did it, I thought was just fantastic to bring in actual science to a science fiction show.
A great technical, to have, there's no substitute for a great subject matter expert, on all of those, whether it's law enforcement or military or space. You got the right people in there, then, the shaping of the story goes the right way,
Absolutely. Well, unlike maybe watching a ship fly in Star Trek or even in Star Wars unrealistically, right? These look realistic, and obviously, right, if you need to slow down, you're going to turn around and do a burn, which they did in The Expanse, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't just you could fly it like an F-16 through space, which they do in Star Trek and Star Wars.
Yeah. Right, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
X-ray 37 heavy, we're coming in.
Oh, it's good stuff. So I'm glad they're back. We'll see. 8 months is a long time. They'll probably spend about 10 days in the hyperbaric chamber before they finally get to go home.
Yeah,
to
they
decompress.
yeah, they said 6 to 8 weeks recovery before they'll be, Earth ready.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, because I respected Mark Kelly before he turned into a buffoon political hack. I remember watching him because he posted everything, even from the space station, to his Instagram account, and just walked you through daily life. And it was one of the coolest accounts ever to
Yeah,
follow.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And now he's out there simping for Biden. So, I, can, I
I
just,
mean, literally defying what he knows to be true,
yes.
logic, mathematics, the way things work, just to simp for the previous administration or for some set of ideals. It's absolutely redonkulous.
And it doesn't help him or his party politically at all.
No,
Right?
they're still lost in the wilderness.
Yeah. I don't know that they come back from this.
No,
I mean,
at least at the midterms, I don't think they're going to get it together by the midterms.
they've got no leadership.
Yeah,
And
and it's
they
certainly
want
not AOC, who has 10%, which is 4% more than anybody else.
Kathy Crockett wants to do it, and I say, by all means, please, please do, because you're not going to get people to show. They might show up and vote for you in your district, but nationwide, not a chance.
Just not a chance. Yeah, I really believe, Sean, that fundamentally Hakeem Jeffries could come to the center, but I think he's unduly influenced by the far left. But I don't think he's a total loss, but he just won't do it. He just won't, you know, just one time say, I gotta agree with Fetterman, about this particular thing or that particular thing. I think Fetterman's onto something here, or I think Charlemagne's onto something here, that kind of deal. But he just won't do it.
I don't think he can. I don't think any of them can. Although Fetterman gets away with it, but I don't think they can because they've been just totally captured by the most radical portion of their base, which is a small, very small minorities that scream the loudest, and then white liberal women. And I don't know how they escape this. I
Yeah,
don't. And I'd like to see healthy competition in our
yeah,
political system. I'd like to see you come back and have something good. I just don't. How do you cut out your whole base, right? How do you
yeah.
ignore?
Sorry, I got to silence my phone.
Yeah, I think that was
Oh,
Edward.
it's
We'll see.
Edward.
We'll see. I don't have him in the room yet. Hopefully he can. That'd be cool. But I don't. How do you fight? Because those are the white liberal moms are going to be the ones that show up at all the events you hold, and they will primary the snot out of you in a second.
Oh, in a second. Yep.
And who wants to go up against that?
Yeah. Yeah. Just screech owls. Absolute screech owls.
Yeah,
And you can't out scream them, It's,
they
it's amazing.
created an absolute monster by turning this thing on, and now, I don't know how they turned it off. Honestly,
And by contrast, all of the conservative white moms in Illinois, actually all races in Illinois, showing up at the state house about the homeschooling,
yep,
where Illinois just wants to drop the hammer on them and call Child Protective Services if they don't meet some standard that the Illinois school board hasn't met in 40 years.
exactly. I don't know where they're going to go. Look, if we can get the midterms and we can get to 60 in the Senate and have cloture on the Republican ticket, I don't know. I don't know when the next time they win again. I mean, they'll win a seat here. They'll win a seat there. Some districts are just blue no matter who. But I don't. If we could actually spend the last 2 years of Trump with a full cloture-proof Senate, right?
Yeah.
Or with cloture, unless they can't do anything, they can't filibuster now.
Yeah.
Trump will just pile new laws down, and they
Yeah.
will legislate
Thanks,
every
Harry Reid. Appreciate
right.
right? Thank you,
Yeah.
pal. Appreciate you.
Well, AOC was wanting to kill the filibuster, right? She was screaming about killing the filibuster, and now she's screaming at Chuck Schumer, "Why didn't you filibuster the CR?" We can't have it both ways, even though you want to. I know you do. You
Yeah.
can't. It's, I don't know. JFK files were kind of a dud, like we predicted. Have you seen anything?
Oh,
J-
so uh, on the TNOAA site,
oh yeah,
there's been all several people, putting excerpts out there, highlighting in yellow, and I haven't gone through all of it, but man, they're going through all of that with a fine tooth comb over at TNOAA.
yeah. There's good episodes, but like from everything I'm seeing that people are producing, it just, I mean, it's just confirming everything we already thought,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
The deep state was involved. Of course, the CIA was involved.
yeah,
Did Israel play a part? Could be. They're part of our intelligence friends, right?
yep,
all of these, all of these things that have already been known, which is what Kath Patel said, right? That's what you
yeah.
get. And so people are out there going, okay, well, that wasn't as much fun as I thought it was going to be.
That's right. Yeah.
And
And
Kath,
you know what? At the end of the day, it's going to be the same thing with the Epstein list and some of this other crap. Just can we just move on for crying out loud?
and I'm totally okay with them being posted publicly. Let all the internet people go through them and do their thing. But
Yeah,
you're going to find what you're looking for,
yeah,
and what you believe to be true is probably true. So,
yeah.
you're just not going to get the smoking gun, right? That says, right, the
That they
video,
want that, and that's what they want is some kind of smoking gun.
right? They want the videotape of Bill walking around in the dress on the island. No, they're not going to get it. You get the painting. You saw the painting. It's there. It's real. They
Yeah,
admitted it's real. Bill admitted it's real.
that's right. But that's
That's
all you get, brother.
all you get to figure the rest out. It's not that hard. Oh, but they're jumping all over that. I think it's funny, but well, and then what's up? Well, the same thing's going to happen with Bobby Kennedy's files, right? You already
Oh
know
yeah,
what happened.
yeah.
You know?
I mean, I think it was 10 years ago or something. RFK, did a data dump on what he knew about his father and all that kind of stuff. That's been public record for a long time.
And I've seen a lot of the left public, whatever they call themselves, influencers. That's what they're saying. They're like, "Ha ha, you maggots! You didn't get anything more than Bobby Kennedy already released for us." I don't know where the win in that post is, but okay.
Yeah.
Oh, what a dig! Great dig.
Ooh, shiver me timbers.
Some of the things people post, I know it's intentional to. It's rage bait tweeting, right?
Yeah.
They post it just because they know people are going to get mad and yell at them,
Yeah.
and they're going cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching,
Yeah.
more money, keep going, more money. Oh,
Yeah.
you're a maggot, cha-ching,
Yeah.
cha-ching.
That's exactly right, dude. Yep.
And people fall for it nonstop. They're like, I'm going to get them. I'm going to be the one that proves them wrong. They don't care if they were wrong. They might
Yeah.
have known they were wrong. They just
Oh,
knew.
like, yeah. Yeah. Like the AP. The AP, posted a headline. Tulsi Gabbard says Putin and Trump are best buds. They're BFFs.
Right.
Well, that's not what she said. She
Nope.
said Trump and Modi were good friends. And so they go to page 35 down in sans serif 8 font and go, yeah, we retract that. That wasn't true.
Right.
And there's got to be more accountability than just printing a retraction.
Well, I would say the Month, right, or the Month Act that Obama got repealed. That was the one that said that they couldn't be held liable for these false claims and smears. Oh, Obama did some evil things, but that was the one where you legally could sue them and hold them accountable. There's no point in suing them anymore because now that act was repealed under Obama, it's meaningless, and you're not going to win the case.
Yeah, that's right.
So I really hope that's somewhere on Trump's agenda to put that back in, to where if you're going to consider yourselves a news organization and you want these quote unquote credentials with access to politicians, then you're going to be held liable when you print false information.
Yeah, some kind of integrity law or some kind of something, you know?
Yeah, and knowing people make mistakes, but you are clearly making them intentionally, AP. Right? If you make a mistake, you're going to retract it in the very first sentence the next time somebody opens the story.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's already been out there. It's already been blasted. It's already gotten 2 million views.
Yep.
So, you know, this all started in the 70s with the National Enquirer and the UFOs and the aliens and, you know, that sensationalism journalism. That's how it got started, you know. And before that was off limits. If you were any newspaper worth your salt, you would never go down that road because the National Enquirer was a laughingstock. Meanwhile, the guy was living in Lantana, Florida, and he was a multi-billionaire.
Oh yeah,
because people bought all that stuff, you know.
1,000%, and it would still sell. It still
Yeah.
sell.
Oh yeah.
Clicks.
Look at what's his name at TMZ. He built his whole life on bullshit.
Yes.
You know.
People read The Onion. Some of them even believe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I really hope that he's got some legislation or they're working on something, because it's just people. It's just they're taking advantage of people's nature who have the time to read the headline and move on.
Yeah.
Right.
LIV, man, low info voters. That's what they're going for.
Oh, 1,000%.
You know, but just the guy grabs the newspaper in Appalachia and goes, "Oh my God, did you see this?
Right.
This is true."
The gas station I stop at is so I can pay my fair share in gasoline, road, and federal excise taxes. They actually still have a couple of print newspapers they leave out on the counter for people to look at. And I always walk by to see the headlines, and it's always something sensational about Trump's cutting your Medicaid. You won't be able to go to the doctor within a month.
Yeah, ever again. Yeah.
It's just complete BS.
Yeah.
But here's a print, well circulated, magazine in a fairly large city, or right newspaper. Yeah. They don't care. They're like, yeah, we're totally gonna lie. Your next Social Security check may not show up.
So
look at these. I'm gonna start taking pictures of it.
I have an example here in Texas. We have a pretty large magazine circulation called the Texas Monthly.
Okay.
And several years ago, it was pre-woke, but when people said woke out loud, but they were left, you know, right. Governor Abbott, bad, you know, everything. And this oil magnate bought the magazine and installed new people in there. And now it's like the five best motorcycle rides in Texas.
Oh wow.
Or, you know, feral hogs are taking over, you know, and what to do about the feral hog problem. And, you know, so it's back to being the Texas Monthly magazine again.
Right. With
and it'll highlight people that are doing good and stuff, and making philanthropist is what I was thinking of. Doing
Yeah.
philanthropy in Texas and that. And it's still the same glossy, pretty thick magazine, but now I like reading it. It's good. It's got good information in it and stuff like that, and they have a whole. The really cool thing, Sean, is they have a whole Texas recipe section that they recur
Oh, wow.
every month, and it's all the mamas in Texas, sharing their recipes and stuff, and for brisket and ribs and cream
Oh,
style
yeah.
corn and all that kind of stuff. So it's cool, but I like being here forever. I still like knowing that San Saba, Texas, population 1,240. You know, during the Mexican wars and stuff, they did this. Almost as big as the Alamo. But who has ever heard of San Saba, Texas? You know
Right.
what I mean? It brings out that kind of stuff, and I really enjoy that.
I've always liked that stuff, and I'm willing to pay for home delivery of these things if I
Yeah,
can find them.
100%. Yeah.
There was a local newspaper a long time ago. I lived in a very, very rural county in Indiana, but it was close enough to two of the big cities that I could get to find employment. But I loved it. Like most of the county, like 55% of it was gravel road. But they
Oh, wow. Yeah.
had a
I'm
county
tracking. Yeah.
they had a county newspaper,
Agricultural.
just rural. Yeah, there was some ag. There was like the local high school in my that would if I would have had kids in high school at the time, still had drive your tractor to school day every spring. Yes,
Yep.
yeah, that rural, but it was rural neighborhoods and it was just far enough out, but that people could work in what like Terre Haute or Indianapolis or
Oh,
Columbus.
I gotcha. Yeah, yeah,
Something
yeah.
Well, you're within an hour of one of those work centers, but it's an hour each way, depending on traffic. Could be much more. But we loved it. We absolutely loved it. And they had this county examiner, whatever county it was, the paper, and it was fabulous. And we all paid for home delivery because it told you about local politics in the county,
Yeah.
what's going on the school board, there's a library board meeting, but then it just had interesting articles about new tavern opening up in Bainbridge,
Yeah.
population
Well, I
17.
love that, dude. That
Uh,
is
ex-
that's cla
expecting,
here's the minutes of the city council meeting.
yep.
They talked about financing for sidewalks and, that kind of stuff. That's so cool, dude. And
Oh,
that's 2,000% American,
yes, and that's the
right?
way. Other than the Chicago Tribune, the Wall Street Journal, and LA Times, that was the news people got one to
Right,
two times a day.
right.
Right? And we all knew that the three biggies that, or add the Wall Street Journal in there, the Tribune out of Chicago, and the LA Times, we all knew exactly what they were like before woke, but just total liberal. But they carried the national politics, so you might have subscribed to one of them, but you definitely subscribed to your local paper.
Yeah.
And you
Oh, absolutely.
left
Oh,
leaning stories, right leaning stories, but again, there'd be a story about a bar opening up in a town with a population of 72 and saying, hey, they're actually going to add 8 apartments above the bar to increase the town's population if you want to move to
yeah.
Bridge, Indiana.
I love that kind of stuff, dude. The back, 40, 50 years ago when we were all living in Waco and the Waco Herald was much smaller, it was, I don't know who the owner was, but it was entirely employed with Baylor students. So
Wow.
we're talking the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And so, but it was all Baylor kids that did the stories, did the reporting, did the typeset, I mean, they literally ran the paper and stuff. And like you
Right.
said, you got some right leaning and left leaning, but they were the coolest about, like, just like you said, hey man, we heard out in Lukenbach, which is 40 minutes from Waco, uh, this historic uh, um, building is going to be turned into a pub, and
Right.
and if you take Texas 6 out to Texas 1429 and turn down the gravel road 7415, you can
Right.
be there, that kind of thing. I just loved it. It was cool. Yeah.
Right. And right. And usually the grand opening wasn't really an opening. They'd hold some sort of
Yeah.
craft
Right. Yeah.
festival, right?
Yep.
So you take your wife and let her shop through all the crafts on set up outside. You'd walk into the pub and just sit down and start talking to people, right?
Yep.
Okay, this is cool, man. And right, start listening to the history of the building and what it was before, and yeah, it's
Yep.
so much fun. Yeah. There's a. I found a couple online, but nothing local to me. But Cowboy State Daily is a online news, Wyoming, I believe, the Cowboy State. Man, they've got some cool stories. I'll post directly to X, stories from Cowboy State Daily, just because they're cool. They're like, or
Yeah. Yeah.
here's the morning sunrise shot over such and such county
Yeah.
of 7 people in Wyoming.
Truckee, yeah. Yeah. So that's funny you say Wyoming, because I just got done binge watching Hell on Wheels.
Oh, so good. So
You
good.
know it.
I liked it a lot.
Oh my God, dude. I'd never heard of it or anything, Sean. I was just, scrolling, and I think I had watched Tombstone for the 41st time or something, And
Really?
down below it says you might also like,
Yes.
you know what I mean, in your app. And it came across as Hell on Wheels. Well, I liked Anson Mount. He was the Star Trek guy, or the TV Star Trek guy, and I knew him. And I said, yeah, let me give this thing a try. Dude, I'm like
Episode 1.
4 episodes a day for 5 seasons, I was like, no shit. But that transcontinental railroad thing,
Yes.
and it was half drama and fiction, but all the locations were real. All of the, a lot of the people in the show were real, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I got my laptop in front of me and I'm watching the show and I'm fact checking.
Yeah.
Oh, he really was the governor.
Right.
Well, Brigham Young really did go there,
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, obviously they dramatized it, but yeah, you're right. And I like when they do TV in that way. So we did The Expanse. Now we'll do this one, right? But they add in a just enough accurate historical reference. That's
Yeah.
when I'm like, you guys are onto it. This is awesome, right?
Yeah.
This is. Let's do more of this. Not that I don't mind a good sci-fi that's just totally fictional, but I prefer the stuff that's got that's nonfiction.
Yeah. My major was history in college. I'm just a fan of all of that stuff, because those generations, before our grandparents,
Whew.
I mean, tougher than a bootleg, and just overcame and did insurmountable stuff. I'm just in awe of all of that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Right. What? Because they only do they try to keep you hooked in to pay the subscription. I think I'm watching every Sunday an episode of 1823, which is Yellowstone.
1923, Taylor Sheridan.
1923. Yeah.
Yeah.
1923. That's what they like. The first one's 1883, and then 1923.
Yeah.
Whatever that was with Kevin Costner that turned really weird. The last 2 seasons or so.
Oh yeah, Yellowstone. Yeah.
But right on that, just trying to imagine, right, the West in 1923. Now New York was already built, I mean, it was a concrete jungle.
Yeah, exactly right.
The
And
West,
and Mamaw writes a letter to her son in Africa who's on safari. It takes 2 years for him to
yes,
get home. It's not like, hey, I need you to come home, son. You know what I mean?
right. And I could literally be anywhere in the world in 36 hours
Yeah,
now in 2025.
yeah. And so that's what I liked about Hell on Wheels was when he ended up finding his Mormon wife and kid, so much time had passed. She's like, man, my man's dead. You know,
Right.
geez, dude, he's dead. Meanwhile, he was captured by Indians and this and that and this and all these things happened to him. And he's searching all over the Mormon world in Utah to try to find her.
Oh
And,
yeah.
the whole time. And then when he does find her, she's kicking it with this other dude. and it's because you had no comms.
Right. Nothing. I
Yeah.
mean, so yeah, you could send a telegram, but to where? Where am I supposed to telegram you?
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know where you went with the railroad because you
Yeah.
guys moved every 3 months. You build a new town, which
That's
that
crazy.
that alone was fascinating, right? And
Yeah.
so a few would stay behind and keep the old town going, but most people would go to the new town that the railroad built
Yeah.
because that's
Yep.
where all the work was going to be. And
Yep.
so they just traveled all the way along. And I remember it from history class, but just getting to visualize it on the big screen was pretty
It
cool.
really is cool because I actually didn't realize that Cheyenne and Laramie were both developed because of the railroad.
Right.
I thought they were all, in your mind's eye, you're like, oh, those towns are already there. That's why we want to bring the railroad there. Nope.
No,
There's nothing there. you know,
nothing at all. And
yeah,
we're picking a topography that's the easiest for us to build as
yeah,
possible, and we're going to put a town there because we need a town there. Why do we need
yeah,
a town there? So all the railroad workers have someplace to go, drink at night, and do their things, catch a
yep.
couple hours of sleep, and come back and start slinging hammers.
All day, dude. All
Brutal.
all day. You got a
Whether it was a
12-pound sledge in your hand 14 hours a day. You know nothing about hygiene. You
no,
you're just on the cusp of starvation at
yep,
any moment. You're exposed to disease and then you go to some, little freak club where everybody else has been.
yeah,
Ah,
yeah,
ah,
yuck. No, I could.
Yeah.
I mean, how much swamp foot? How many people lost feet? I guess they didn't know how to take care of their feet while they're doing this. And then look, when
Oh, yeah, that was the other thing, Sean. The 90% of the whole 5 seasons was in mud.
right?
That town never dried out. No matter what town it was, it never dried out. It
Nope.
was muddy the whole time.
Because they set the town up, but they didn't put in irrigation or stormwater drainage. They're just like, hey,
Nope.
we need to slap some buildings together. Here we go.
Yeah.
Where's the water going to go? Because now it's ponding because you took surface area away from the earth to throw
Mm.
buildings on it, right? All the things we know now, they didn't know, or if they did know that, they're like, we ain't got time for that. We
Yeah.
got railroad bill. We ain't got time to do that.
Right.
Right? Because they did know that. I think I remember reading a story about how Minneapolis was built with open storm drains. And they had to just teach the people. And it was already a city while this railroad, the Pacific Railroad, was being built, concrete jungle. But they just had to basically teach people that these were storm drains only and not sewer drains. We're going to put in the sewers later. And they were fairly effective in their campaign with the local newspapers to make sure people knew that, but that they had put these things in to get rid of watershed
The
because
storm water. Yeah.
We turned the whole place concrete.
Yeah, don't put your piss pot and dump it in there.
Right.
That's not what it's for.
And that's what, right. There was a whole campaign they ran in the local papers in the early 1900s just to teach people that were immigrating because they wouldn't have known. And I get it. I don't. I'm imagining if you're coming from Europe, you had plumbing at that time, so you wouldn't assume anything. Minnesota,
And like you said, New York was already built.
New York, and already had
Yeah,
indoor
so it
plumbing.
already had infrastructure and engineers had sorted out all that stuff out.
Right, and they separated the sewer from the storm system, and yeah, but Minneapolis wasn't quite that far along at the time, so they literally had to tell people, we've only put in the storm drains, we haven't put in the sewer system. Yeah. It's hard for me to imagine living those times, and that's just, you're talking like 100 years ago, and how fast the human race, especially in the West, has evolved in
Yes.
100 years.
Yes, we're
Right?
not talking 22 BC.
Right.
You know, we're talking 1840s.
1840s for the railroad, but this story I'm talking about, I believe, from that I was reading. I have to find the link and post it. I'll have to post it on Substack if I can find it. Was from the like 1910s. It was around World War One.
Yeah.
So you're talking 110 years,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
It blows my mind sometimes to think about what people lived like.
Man,
Yeah.
my grandparents, my grandfather worked in the oil business, and he owned a bunch of property outside of Waco in Limestone County. And he joined the service, you know, and went to France and fought in World War One in, you know, 1915. 1915.
Right.
You know? And they literally digging potatoes up out of crops and eating just potatoes, you know, for months at a time because,
Right.
you know, they didn't have MREs or, you know, any of that. And then my daddy said he rode the train from Waco to Delaware. No, he went from Waco to Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri.
Okay, yeah.
And that's where he got his infantry training, and then rode the train, which he said was like 10 or 12, maybe 15 miles an hour, all the way to Delaware. It took him like 2 weeks to get to Delaware.
Wow.
And he said that was the worst thing I'd ever done in my life until I got on that merchant marine ship in Delaware and floated across to the UK, to England.
None of them had, because they trained on land, none of them had sea legs. So they're all thick as dogs.
He said you could not stand to be below deck, and there would be literally hundreds of guys lashing themselves to the railing above deck so that they could just vomit in peace.
Right.
For months. It took them 3 months to get to England, Sean.
I can't imagine.
Yeah. My truck won't start. My truck won't start. I get madder ahead. I'm just, you know, it's the end of the world.
Right. I know. It's like, damn it, I have to replace a battery. This ball.
Yeah.
No. Instead, I got to hang on a wobbly ship with no stabilizers. It's just going like this.
Yeah.
For
the whole time, even in calm waters.
Right.
But he said they went in August. In August is not the time to be in the North Sea.
No.
Because that's when all the storms are and all that kind of, it was just miserable. And he said his whole battalion, when they got to England, they were sick for like a month before they could start training again.
Right.
You know, to be soldiery enough to do soldier shit. and then they trained for 3 months, and then he got back on a ship and went to Tripoli, in North Africa.
Oh, Jesus.
He's like, could somebody, can I get a
Right.
break here somewhere?
Yeah, seriously. I can't get
Yeah.
stationed. Well, wherever it was cool back then. Now it's Pearl Harbor or Germany, right? That's where you or South Korea. I've had friends serve there, and they're like, "Dude, it's the coolest thing ever," because we're never going to get in a fight with anybody. all
Yeah.
we do is go to the bars.
And I got to tell you, we did not, how those guys are all, I'd always try to get Dad to tell me a war story or something. He'd never talk about it or anything.
Couldn't get my
Sean,
grandpa to.
I swear to God, dude, not until he died that we found out he got 2 Bronze Stars, one in North Africa and one in Anzio, Italy. We never knew it.
Wow.
Had no idea, dude.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was my dad found out about his dad, but World War II, airplane mechanic, World War II, and even just because he was like he wasn't combat facing. No, I don't. I mean, that might have been pot shots at him from idiots, but even that, it was the silent generation. Absolutely. And then my uncle served in Vietnam, and it tear him up really bad. And so he never said a word about it. And I remember calling my dad. I had a Consonanta organ with a Wurlitzer speaker when my grandpa passed away. That he said, you can have this before I passed. He knew he was passing. So I got it about 2 weeks before he passed. And one day I just decided to open the bench up on it, look through and see what
Just see what's up. Yeah.
I can play by ear, so I don't necessarily need sheet music. But I was just curious, what did Grandpa play? And right on the top was for my uncle Bill. It was what you need to bring because you're going to Vietnam. Here's the list of all the items you need to bring.
No way.
Here's your date for arrival. Be no later than this, 8 a.m. on this day. Bring these items and only these items with you. I had the actual physical documents. I called my dad. I was like, Dad, do you want this? This is your brother. And he's like, nope. You keep it. He's like, it messed him up so bad.
Too emotional. Yeah.
Right. He didn't want anything he's like, I don't want anything to do with it. And my dad didn't serve because he was 6 years younger, so he wasn't eligible when his older brother was serving in Vietnam. And he's like, nope, I saw how bad it messed. Nope, I don't even want to see the document.
That's me and my brother. We were 7 years apart, and he went, and I was a senior in high school. I wanted to join, but Mom raised so much hell. She's like, Dad, because he was over there at the time when I was graduating. And she's like, oh, no, I'll tell your daddy. You won't survive.
Right. It really was. It was a war we never should have got involved with. It's not the first one we've done like that, but it was just a bad war. And then we set the boys up at a no-win position because they weren't allowed to win.
Yeah.
There was we fought some dumb wars, but that's got to be the dumbest one. And
one of the dumbest.
If we were going to do it, we should at least let them over there win. And we told them they're not allowed to win.
We're not. And so, that heart and minds bullshit. So now the 2 airborne corps. There's the 101st Airborne and there's the 82nd Airborne. So the 101st Airborne is now called the Hearts and Minds Battalion, Corps, because those are the guys that go in and try to win the hearts and minds of locals and all that kind of stuff whereas the 82nd Airborne are still war fighters. You know, they go in for one purpose only, and that's to cull the herd, you know?
Right. I don't know that Hearts and Minds campaigns. Period. It's 2025. I
But
think we've learned
State
our lesson.
Department's still doing it, Sean. I've told you this before, that
Yep.
$12 billion AFRICAT program has been going on since 2007. It doesn't matter who the president is. It's still $12 billion a year, and
Right.
it still gets funded. And we're still over there training African troops and buying them armored personnel vehicles and doing all this, nation building.
Right.
To what end?
Well, and that's what I want to get out of. And I've been clear about that this whole last year. I want to get out of nation building. They listen. Their culture is never going to be pro-Western. They're never going to adopt our values. If they're going to have little skirmishes between themselves, let them have skirmishes between themselves. It's of no mind to me. It doesn't affect me at all. We're not saving anybody from these skirmishes by
We're
being
not.
there, right?
We're not.
I want
And all, we enrich the wrong people. That's always ends up. That's what happened in the Balkans. The only people that won in the Balkans were the mafia. That's the only people that came out ahead.
Why'd we get rid of the mullahs? I'm sure Iran would be in a better spot, even though if the mullahs were evil. They'd probably be better off and more free today if the mullahs were still in charge, as
Yep.
opposed to what we got in there now, right?
Yeah.
So that's the stuff I want to get out of. But then because I watch social media pretty closely, I see everybody going, "Oh, see, you guys, you said Trump no new wars, and he's bombing."
Bombing the
Houthis.
Houthis. That's not a new war, dude.
It's not a new war, and it is for our national security. If you give me the time to explain it to you, I will, but you won't take the time. But it's 1,000% for our national security. And it's for
it aggravates me so much because all they do is ratchet. They ratchet and they screech. Oh, no new wars, huh? How about 177 attacks on U.S. ships? And that's just the U.S. ships. What about the other ships in the region?
If you're all screaming, crying about our allies, we don't help our allies. We are doing this so our allies can run their ships through that area too, because they're attacking every ship that enters. They don't care whose it is.
Right.
They just fire on it.
Yeah.
And if they hit it, they all scream and go to social media and say, "Look, we won.
Yeah.
We won again."
Yeah, there's nothing I like more than watching those F-18s blast off from that carrier in the Roosevelt group.
Yeah.
And all that stuff underneath the wings. I'm like, oh, it's going to suck for somebody in about 45 minutes.
Man, a lot of them. I saw a video where like 5 in a row, all fired off with the 2,000 pounders. And I was like, I don't know if that thing's going to get off the deck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's got one on
Moabs.
It's got one on each wing, and I'm watching it. It's like it goes off the deck and it goes down, and I'm like, oh
yeah.
God, oh God.
Yeah, that's so funny. It goes below the horizon and then it comes back up. And you're like, oh,
he starts climbing, right? Whereas normally, if it's just got tomahawks on it or something, it's just up straight up, right? These things, they've got them loaded down to max capacity with these Moabs. It's fun, dude. It's fun to watch because
it's great. I want to re-enlist every time I see it. So.
It really is fun, and I'm surprised the news isn't actually all over it, like the television news, screaming no new wars, because they're doing like the Roosevelt's running. That's the one that's over there, right?
Yep.
They're running 24-hour a day operations. I mean, that thing's we're just launching and catching.
They're just pounding and pounding and pounding. And all the support ships are shooting down all the drones that the Houthis are launching. Yeah. I think that's funny. Launch, boom. Launch, boom. Hey, give me 1 second.
Yeah, it's so much fun to watch this stuff. It's just, it reminds me of watching Shock and Awe back in that time.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, hell yeah.
and I was absolutely glued. I was in junior high. I was glued to the TV. I remember we had basketball practice. Dad was the coach. My brother and I were on the same team. It was just a junior high team. And it was the actual day of Shock and Awe, right? The open. And I'm sitting in front of the TV, like on the floor, because it's one of those big console TVs that weighs
Right.
500 pounds that eventually you make into a TV stand when it dies.
Yep.
So I'm sitting on the floor, like, good. And my dad comes in and goes, "Hey, it's time late for practice." And I'm just still staring at the TV, like, and he goes, "So I guess you're not going to practice today, right?" Pats me on the back of the shoulder. And my brother go get in the car. And I was seated in that position when he got home. And he's like, you got to get up. You got to get up and move. He goes, "This is going to happen for the next 3 weeks. It'll be there. Don't worry. You're
That's
not
awesome.
you're not going to miss anything." Because right, he'd seen the same type of video with Vietnam. So I'd just never seen that on live television.
Right.
And I was like, holy crap, America's awesome. Not understanding that we had no business being there because there was no
Yeah,
WWE.
that's
I
beside the
was,
point.
I was still like, holy, America's the coolest place ever. Well, we're blowing stuff up. We just blew up an entire country.
And that's different about today. Because you notice we don't have daily reporting from Ukraine. We don't have, Trey Yingst, who's in Israel all the time. We don't have a Trey Yingst guy over in the Ukraine, reporting a war
No,
and having war footage and all that kind of stuff. They don't have any. It's just not in the news.
I, we did what I think it was Friday when we were doing a space over on X, and someone had brought that up. And I think at first it's not politically expedient, but second, I think these reporters, because it's a World War One style trench warfare, they would be in a trench, and they're like, hey, they're just not the
Oh,
journalists we used to
yeah,
have,
I didn't think about that. Yeah,
and they'd be living amongst a battalion in a trench,
yeah,
in mud, in the winter, in
yeah,
Ukraine.
yeah.
And
That makes sense.
I don't think with today's internet journalists that we're not journalists. We're just here for entertainment. But we're still. I'm in an air conditioned home and a 77 degrees outside.
Yep.
We're on the internet, right? So I don't know that even the actual real journalists are willing to even do it, which is it's a sad state of where Western journalism is. Because you would think there'd be some rookie 17 or 18-year-old kid coming out,
Oh,
getting ready to
dude.
go to
Uh,
journalism college, going, "I'll take a year,
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
get
I
famous."
remember, 21-year-old Brian Williams in Vietnam. I remember him there. He just young, didn't even look like he shaved he looked like all the soldiers there and stuff.
Yeah,
He
who
had
gets
on his fatigues and stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, holy shit, this is."
right? The only difference in the fatigues was on the front and back, it had press,
Yeah, that's right. Yep,
right? And it said press on the helmet, which was supposed to mean same as Red Cross helmet, off limits. Sometimes they're not, but
yeah,
that was war reporting, and that's what I remember that from, because once we did Shock and Awe, we went into Iraq boots on the ground, and there was reporters living in bases, going
yep,
on runs in
yeah,
dune buggies,
yep.
right? And they were now Juan Williams didn't get shot at in a helicopter. He's a liar. But
Yeah,
there was journalists getting shot at in dune buggies
sure.
as they were
Yeah, we
going
had
away.
them when I was a PMC man. We had them in Sudan. We had them embedded in Somalia. They were there every day and stuff. And yeah, They don't do that anymore.
So again, is that just the state of journalism and 20-year-olds now, or is it? It's just maybe it's not even allowed with our current media system that they don't want this narrative of a 100-year-old style trench war to be broadcast on television.
Yeah, it could be.
Or is it
Well,
both?
there's nothing more brutal, dude. There is
Oh,
nothing more brutal than trench warfare.
right. When they run out of bullets, they start throwing rocks at each other.
Yeah, literally. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, you saw one of the best depictions I think of, and this would have been World War II, but was watch Band of Brothers, that series, where right with it was the 101st, they airdropped in, and
Oh
then when
yeah.
they ran out of bullets, and they literally just took their bayonets and rocks they could find and continued killing the enemy.
Yeah.
Brutal, just
Yeah.
brutal.
Just brutal. Yeah.
Right, and you're losing half your friends every battle.
Yeah. You can't wrap your head around that, dude.
No, which is I mean if you're watching this later and you've never seen the Band of Brothers series, HBO did it, but it's available in other places. It's a brilliant series. They did a follow-up series. I can't remember what it was.
The
Pacific,
Yeah.
which was also really good. But Band of Brothers, top notch. It
Oh, yeah.
was really good stuff.
Yeah.
And then, right, the beaches at Normandy, the first 20 minutes of Saving Private Ryan.
Dude, I could hardly watch that shit on Saving Private Ryan. Just dang, dude. My dad never did watch it.
I'll bet.
Yeah, he started it twice, and he's like, nope, click. Can't do it.
I'll bet. I think I heard a story, and I can't remember where I heard it, but yeah, a guy my age was sitting down with his dad, maybe a little older than me, sitting down with his dad, and they were going to watch it. 5 minutes in, the dad said, "Turn this shit off."
Yeah.
You know, the guy my age was like, and this is what was 20 years ago when that movie came out. Right? He's like, "Nope." He's like, "If you want to watch it, go watch it at your house. We ain't watching that shit here."
Wow.
Right? Because it was just too goddamn accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
People barfing into their army helmets, and
Oh,
God, you couldn't even get out of those boats with the machine gun nest.
yeah.
And the bravery of them still to climb that wall and
Build a
overtake.
clock, yeah. And you know, the boat stopping too short of the shoreline, and the guy jumps out with an M60 or no, BAR back then, and
Right.
he just sinks right to the bottom. He's like in 12 feet of water instead
That's
of
right.
4 feet of water. And
Walk on the
he's,
bottom.
Aquaman trying to, God dang, dude.
Right, full pack. Full pack. You were being deployed. Here's your
Yeah.
right. 100-pound pack plus the firearm, and now you're in 12 foot of water. So you're walking on the bottom of the beach.
Yeah. And hoping your lungs last until you can get your head above water.
Right, because you can't swim with that much weight on.
Yeah. With all this coming at you.
No. And I'll tell you, because in high school, I did, it was a class we could take. So I was like, hell yeah, I could take a class to become a lifeguard, and I don't have to go to creative writing or French too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to do
French too.
And the whole part of it was making sure that you don't get subdued by the victim, because you'll go down with them.
Oh, yeah.
And how you had to like arm lock them and wrestle them so they couldn't touch you.
Oh, yeah.
You had them headlocked so you could actually swim them out.
Let me tell you something, Sean.
You had to be aggressive.
I'm 6'2" and 280. Let me get in a panic mode and see how close you get to me.
Well, and that's what it was.
You know what I mean?
Exactly what,
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
The
It's going to be on, dude.
It was like, yeah, no, and that's what you say. That's funny. The instructor that was training us was that size. He goes, "Your final test, and you will not pass, is if you cannot subdue me in the deep end of the diving well and get me out." And he goes, "I'm not going to play on you because your life is important." He goes, I'd rather have you alive and lose a victim than lose the victim and the lifeguard.
Yeah.
And you're only passing this if you can get my ass to stop from throwing you to the bottom of this pool.
I have always heard that the U.S. Coast Guard is far and away more than SEALs, more than Ranger, more than the Q course, that the Coast Guard basic training is the hardest basic training you'll ever do in your life.
They're badasses.
Because 80% of it is just what you said.
Yeah. Oh,
Pulling
absolutely.
people out of the water that are freaking out and don't want to be messed with.
And it's natural reaction to reach up to the guy trying to save you and use them as a way to lift yourself out of the water. Right?
Yeah.
And so you're going to tie them up in a panic. And so being able to make that approach and make that flip on them to get them on their back and lock them up so their arms are now immobile, right?
Yeah.
With a Nelson, basically, or a couple of different moves.
And in the Bering Sea,
with 12-foot swells
in October,
yeah.
Right? It's 12-degree water,
yeah.
12-foot swells.
Yes.
And yep, okay.
I can't imagine. Well, dude, so Bering Sea stuff, I am so glad that Discovery did Deadliest Catch and showed us that. But I mean, I wish Discovery would follow the Coast Guard doing drug running, chasing down these boats and because these, like, if you see videos online, these dudes are badasses. They will literally jump at 60 miles an hour onto a cigarette boat, start pointed at M60.
I don't care.
At them, and be like, "You're done.
Yep.
Turn the boat off. Oh, you're not going to turn the boat off? You're all done.
Yep.
You're deleted. We just deleted you from Earth.
Yep.
Right? Nobody else.
Yeah. So that the Narcotics Task Force I was on in South Florida in the 80s and 90s was called Blue Lightning, and it was FBI, DEA, Coast Guard, and SWAT teams, on the regional sheriffs, like 2 or 3 counties of sheriff's department.
Yeah.
Along the east coast of Florida. And I was on one of those. And dude, not only like you're talking about jumping on a boat, I'm talking a full grown man running a boat at 45, 50 knots, just fucking guns on it, because you had to have to control that boat, and know how to manipulate it and cut a boat off and do all that kind of, and we're all great, we got our strap, we're all in and going, water hitting us in the face and shit, and yeah. And this guy's got his Ray-Bans on. He's like, okay.
Yeah, he's like this.
Hey, bro.
Good times. All right, well, my friend, we've reached the hour.
Okay.
We got another one. So that was episode 3. We'll close this one out. We're making progress. For those of you watching at home, or we'll watch the recording later, I did add Spotify to our network. It won't be live. I'll have it on by the next day. So if we're doing Mondays and Wednesdays, you'll have it on Spotify on Tuesday and Thursdays. Any closing thoughts, Paul?
Yeah, I'd just like to say I think this is really a lot of fun, and as we develop this thing, I think we're going to gain more followers and stuff, and I would encourage people that do follow not to be passive, but to actively come in and contribute to the conversation. We're not doing a set thing of we're going to talk about this, that, and the other in the headlines. We are going to cover those, but the main thing is that, we're just some Joes sitting around talking about what's happening in our world, and we would love everybody to participate and come in and be an active participant. That's all I'll say.
I appreciate that. I want to follow up on that real quick, and then I'm going to close it out. Right now, we are live on Rumble, Locals, Twitch, and X. And I have a live chat room set up. Doesn't matter which one of those we're using. I'll be able to see them. I'll be able to read them and shout them out. We can interact. You can ask us questions, call us morons. We don't really care either way. Yeah, just participate with us. We'll see you next time. Friday, we'll be doing it over on X only. So if you follow us on X, or go find us on X, my profile is the same. You'll see Paul there. You can follow him there. I think Paul will be back here Monday doing live.
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm going to close this one out and start rendering it for all the people over at Spotify that want to hear us.
Talk to you later, brother.
Bye-bye.